Hey there, we've got the partial lunar eclipse coming up on the 18th of September 2024. And in this video, I want to do a much deeper dive about it. You might have noticed that I've already spoken about it in the September forecast. I actually did speak about it back in March when I did a yearly eclipse forecast for 2024. And I've just recently spoken about it in the weekly forecast that I released yesterday for this particular week ahead. But I didn't go into it in the way that I usually approach new moons and full moons, and that is to give a much deeper look at the asteroid picture, the sort of cosmic picture, and to go in with a lot more detail. And so what I want to do in this video is to really have a look at it. We usually have 2 lunar eclipses every year. But we don't always have eclipses in the sign of Pisces. And so that's something that's new. That's a little bit different, you know. So I traced back in time using a really, really good site, which you might already use, which is www.timeanddate.com. It's got a really good sun and moon tab. And when you go on there, you can find the moon phases, the eclipses, the starts of the seasons and things like that. And it does it in your own local time zone, which is really fantastic. So I went back to look for any lunar eclipses that were happening during the time of the Virgo season, because a lunar eclipse is when the moon is in opposition to the sun. And so I was looking for the Virgo season because Virgo is in opposition to Pisces. So, you know, to get a lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces, I was looking at all the different eclipses to see which were falling at that time when the sun is in the Virgo sign. And these are the particular ones. Now, you know, you'll see there's some really big gaps, and that there's the sort of incidents that there are sometimes 2 that follow each other. Now, what that's to do with is the whole flow of the node, and the north node and the south node as they're going through the signs. So I need to just take a step back. You know, how do we know when there is an eclipse? Well, the eclipses are always occurring when there's a new moon or a full moon that is really, really close to the nodes, like in a conjunction or are literally just about to cross the nodes. So we always get them approximately 6 months apart from each other. And the nodes, they take 18 to 19 years. I think it's like something like 18.9 years to go from all the way through the zodiac and back to where it was. So you get your nodal return between the age of 18 and 19. Now, what that means is the nodes spend approximately 18 months in every sign of the zodiac. So, you know, right now the north node is in Aries and the south node is in Libra. We're more than halfway through it, and they will be changing in January and be going into the sign of the north node will be going into the sign of Pisces, and the south node will be going into the sign of Virgo. And so that's why right now, and for the last year, we've had the eclipses in the signs of Aries and Libra, mainly because that's where the nodes are. But because the node is about to change within 6 months, this particular eclipse is showing right at the tail end of Pisces, hinting to us that the nodes are going to change into the sign of Pisces. So it's based on the astronomical and astrological pattern. I say astrological because astronomy doesn't actually confer that there is a zodiacal belt, you know, that there is the ecliptic, you know, with all the signs, you know, so it's astronomical, but also astrological. It's a whole pattern. Yeah, so this is the first eclipse in 2024 in the sign of Pisces, a lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces that we've had for a really long time. And this time next year, I think on the 7th of September 2025, we're going to do another one. Now, what this means to me is what issues are being brought up for you right now, you're going to get a chance to revisit them again in a very similar way, but a transformed way. So you might also choose to look at this particular eclipse as signaling like the trajectory that you're on, and also how you might reach it, you know, and it's almost setting you that year to do it. So I think this is actually quite useful. And, you know, after this point in time, you know, we're not going to have another lunar eclipse like this in the sign of Pisces until 2034. So we've got another decade after, or there's 9 years actually after the next one. But, you know, they are not a frequent event. So yeah, it's important. And if you have things in particular in the sign of Pisces, if you've got an angle or a planet towards the end of Pisces, it's going to be a lot more affected than, you know, like it will affect you a lot more than a normal eclipse would likely affect you. If you've got something at the tail end of Virgo or the tail end of Sagittarius, the tail end of Gemini, they're all the mutable signs. You know, you're likely to feel this a lot more strongly. So yeah, that's one of the things that I want to sort of really dive into. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say thank you to everybody that supports this channel. You're all amazing, and I love you, and thank you so very much. So what I'm going to do is have a look at the planetary picture, first of all, and then look at the cosmic picture, and then bring in some asteroids that are already playing into this, and really examine what they might be meaning. You know, there's definitely, I think, the possibility for us to learn about these times through the medium of mythology. And these asteroids, they're named after mythological characters. Sometimes they're named after characters in modern day books or named after countries, but they've always got some kind of theme. And I always think that when they show up, it's highlighting a particular theme. You know, there is a link. It's kind of uncanny. I guess once you start working with named asteroids, and you notice the coincidences that happen more and more frequently when you're using asteroids, they become a little bit of a habit. So yeah, I'm also going to be looking at that. So first of all, let's have a look at this planetary picture and what that's representing. You know, I have covered a lot of this in the weekly update, so I don't want to go through this particular bit of it too much, because you will get that in the weekly one. But essentially, the sun and the moon are in opposition. So the sun's at 25 degrees and the moon's at 25 degrees in the sign of Pisces. That's in Virgo. And Neptune is in Pisces, and it's really, really close to the moon. Now, one of the things that I described in the weekly update is that the moon and Neptune together creates a very, very strong, imaginative, dreamy, and possibly pessimistic energy. You know, I think all planets have a real positive kind of expression and also a negative expression. Now, you know, that's not to say that one is better than the other. I mean, that's just judgment. It's up to you. You make up your own mind. But one thing that I notice with the combination of the moon and Neptune is at one end, it's about losing yourself because you don't like, you almost can't bear to be yourself, you know. So the sort of tail end of, or the sort of lower frequency or vibration of Neptune is kind of boozy, sometimes using drugs to alter your state. It can include lots of high stakes activities and danger sports, not because it's you know, like a dangerous planet, but you want to feel like you're out of your body. You want to forget who you are. So anything you can do to kind of forget who you are sort of comes up with this really strong Neptune, and also the moon in Pisces. And the combination of them, you know, can sometimes really bring up this feeling of helplessness, and a desire to kind of lose yourself and forget who you are. So, you know, on the negative, it's almost showing where we want to dissolve our personality now, you know, kind of forget who we are. Now, there is a sort of positive side to that, you know, because, you know, on the other hand, there is that sort of dissolution of ego or personality where we start to lose our fronts, you know, all of our hard faces, all of our masks that we wear, and we all wear them, whether we're aware of them or not. You know, we're always wearing masks for one reason or another. And yet the more you practice being in the moment, or connecting to spirit, or connecting to your higher self, or feeling the connection, or recognizing that you are maybe a divine being in a physical body. The more you do that, the more you start to lose that control over your identity. You start to stop identifying with yourself, but for a whole different ballgame. So I really do think that Neptune and the moon are really showing us losing our grip on our identity, and we're sort of dissolving our personality at some level, and we might be doing it unconsciously through habits, and through a fear of facing ourselves, or we might be doing it very consciously because we are enlightening ourselves, we are awakening, and we are absolutely in the joy and connection between us and all other living beings. So, it's the same thing is happening, but from a completely different polarity, which I find fascinating, really, really fascinating. Now, lots of people lose themselves in arts and creativity, and, they get ideas, and then all of a sudden something new emerges. And Neptune is absolutely known for all levels of creativity. It's like the fragrance in life, it's the theme tune to your life. So musicians, artists, writers find, this Neptune energy and the Pisces energy really, really beautiful. And it can be wildly uplifting. So, this could be experienced in many different ways. One thing I would ask you is, how do you cope with things not going well for yourself? Do you have a tendency to be despondent when life isn't quite going your way? Do you have a default position of going into a depression? I find that a lot of people who easily go into depression, it's not necessarily because there's anything necessarily wrong with them per se, but that they have this ease of having these really big highs and then they have these really big lows. I also think their charts tend to correspond really quite a lot with the artistic and creative types. I think that's probably why, in pop culture and stuff, there are lots of musicians and artists and writers that have, left their lives quite early on in life, because of, the way they're treating their body, but also because they've willfully wanted to do it. So, I do see this correlation between people who really experience these really extreme highs and then these very extreme lows. It can be a great thing, and it can lead to some real beautiful works of art, and also it can lead to these massive times of despondency. And one of the things about this Pisces moon, like if you recognize yourself in that, then I think it's time to really take some positive action to make sure you are in the right frame of mind for this kind of energy as it comes in, because I always think with the energy of the planets, it's important to use the energy so it doesn't use you. If there's this wildly creative energy that could really lift you up, but it could really drop you down, then I think, if you're prepared for it, you could almost use it in a positive way so that you're kind of soaking it up like a bit of bread on some gravy at the end of a meal. You want to get that flavor of it, but if you don't do anything with it, and this sort of wave of Neptune moon energy comes and hits you, it could knock you for six. And if you have a tendency to go under and to feel depressive, then that may well come up for you. So I think it's entirely in your hands as to how you want to handle this, and that's the whole reason why I wanted to share this with you, because these eclipses are felt at such a deep level, and they occur at a time when things get very, very busy for counselors, psychotherapists, people like me, like coaches. We all get really busy around these times because more and more people are really thinking about things. It's one of these cycles, it's a cyclical pattern that is intense by its very nature. Now, the sun in Virgo is absolutely about us feeling real and getting our lives in shape. And it's interesting because it's obviously a polarity. The sun's in one hand, the moon's in another, and it feels like they're pulling it, in opposite directions. There is a part of you and me and probably everyone else right now that is absolutely trying to get a grip on reality and to feel absolutely like they've got their lives together, like they're an adult, like they can cope and be quite magnificent. And there's also maybe this childlike energy, or this dreamer type energy that is absolutely coming up as well. So my advice is, how can you integrate this energy before this big eclipse? Now, so, there's more to this than that, because, the next level considerations when looking at this is the sun and the moon are also in a T-square to Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is also one of the rulers of Pisces. So, the sign of Pisces is ruled, according to whether you're traditional or a modern day astrologer, Jupiter is a traditional ruler and Neptune is a modern ruler of Pisces. So you've got these two. Both Jupiter and Neptune are expansive by nature. They are unboundaried. They are absolutely welcoming of possibilities. They are all about possibilities, but then they're not necessarily easy to pin down. Now, Jupiter in the sign of Gemini is opening up the functionality of ideas and communication. Now, in the square to the moon, we can go over the top with the Jupiter energy. So we might want to release a little bit more in terms of what we're saying, how we're feeling at that time. And of course, if you're feeling really overwhelmed, you might end up speaking a lot more fully than you would normally, and that can get inflamed. Jupiter does expand things, but he also enlarges existing problems. So I think, if ever you've got Jupiter coming into an important part of your chart, if your life is really right, when Jupiter comes in, Jupiter enhances the rightness of it. But if Jupiter is coming into your life and there are some pre-existing problems, Jupiter comes in and enlarges the problems. It's not that the planet is bad with the expansion or the enhancement, but he is by nature he is a figure that enhances things. So, we always need to be mindful of, where are we right now? Where is your energy right now? Who are you being right now? Because, Jupiter is going to be enhancing, what you're feeling and thinking. So in the square to the moon, we can get very stubborn and we can get a little bit arrogant and a little bit proud. So, this could really raise the pre-existing energy of the full moon and eclipse, which, these are times when we tend to be extra sensitive. So you might find you're really sensitive and then really too proud to talk about it. Like, you open up a conversation, but then refuse to finish it because you're too proud to go into it, or you're too proud to receive any help. So again, if you know that you're likely to get emotional and also have a pre-existing pride, that might stop you from accepting help, you might want to think about what's going on right now so that you can create some strategies for yourself. Now, again, like if you are doing something like writing or creating, making music or developing a hobby or something, this can actually be quite helpful, because Jupiter is absolutely giving you the pride to continue and the energy to continue, and this feeling of invincibility, like the sun in a square to Jupiter doesn't really know when to end. So it does give you this energy to keep going and to not stop. So again, I would just say, make sure you're on the right track. And if you're on the right track, keep going. There's no harm, no foul. But, I think it's really important for us to get really real and know who we are as these are coming in, so we don't get swayed too much. Almost like being an observer in your own life. See what patterns and programs you're running. Now, Jupiter is obviously, I've said, he's in a square to the moon. He's also in a square to Neptune, and he's also square to the sun, but he's also square to Mercury, and he's also square to Saturn. So like Jupiter is kind of like a linchpin in this. Jupiter and Mercury in a square is showing an abundance of ideas and really wanting to talk about the ideas and maybe being a bit frustrated to get your ideas out, almost like there's a bit of a rush to be able to deal with all of the ideas, you know, so it's a real sort of intense mental activity. So I think it's fantastic for the sort of functionality such as brainstorming, you know, if that's your thing. You know, Jupiter and Mercury are absolutely there to really help you. Now, the square between Jupiter and Saturn I've spoken about separately in a Jupiter and Saturn square video. They are in a square now for another 8 or 9 months. They've already been in a square for about a month and a half. This is like a normal cycle where we are considering our own feelings of sovereignty and how capable we are. And so the sort of capability issue around this time is, you know, on the one hand, you're wanting to develop things, and on the other hand, you're wanting to stabilize things. And so, you know, at this moment in time, around the time of the eclipse, there's tons of ideas, lots of inspiration, lots of pride, and maybe we're a bit foolhardy. Maybe you are, who knows? I know I can get like that when I've got an idea and a bit between my teeth. And then there's this very strong emotionalism as well that can be fueling it, plus a very strong creativity. So there's a lot of things lining up there to blow this pattern far and wide, much bigger than it ever needed to be. Then we've also got the trines and kites, which is giving us flow. So, you know, the Jupiter ones were showing us where the tensions, because there's too much of this eclipse energy, which is already too much. And then we've got the trines, which is showing where things are easy. Now, I'm just going to show this. So obviously we've got the opposition between the sun and the moon, and Neptune is also in an opposition as well. But we've also got this trine. So the sun is making a trine to Uranus, showing that we are all very innovative and feeling surprisingly inventive. We're wanting to resolve things for ourselves. We are wanting to be open to new information. We are wanting to find the key. We're open to finding the key for us. And the sun is in a trine to Pluto. There is a willingness and a desire to transform. So these are underlying allies, I think, in this time. It's like we're leaning against an open door. You know, we are really wanting to transform our opportunities and our situation. You know, when I look at the comments I get on my videos, I hear that there's a lot of stagnant energy, you know, like people have been in these long-term chronic situations. And what this is representing right now is that we are all coming to a time where we're ready to let go of the stagnant situations and these unmovable situations, these seemingly impossible situations. This is the time with this lovely Uranus and Moon trine. This is a time when we can absolutely pull into like the ether, like pull from the ether these ideas. Like, are they coming to us telepathically? Is it because you're in the right place at the right time? You get the inspiration, but there is an openness to things resolving. And then obviously Uranus and Pluto are already in a trine. They've been in a trine for ages, and they're going to be in a trine for ages. You know, I have a lot of faith in humanity when I see things like this, because it's a long-term energy showing that there is already an answer. And there are lots of gurus or modes of thought that suggest that if there is a question, the answer already exists, which is a bit of a mind bender. You know, and if you're into metaphysics, you'll probably go, oh yeah, of course, you know, because everything exists. But, you know, if this is new to you, that might be a bit of a shocker. But like for every question that you might have, apparently there is always an answer. And I think that, you know, if I can answer a question and articulate a question, the energy for the resolution and the answer already exists. And so, you know, this kind of energy is saying, I believe in possibility. And it's almost like feeling that sense of possibility helps to enable solutions to come your way. So I love it. And then, of course, because the moon and sun are exactly opposite, if these two are making an aspect to the moon, to the sun, then they're also making sextiles to the moon. So Uranus and the moon in a sextile is really the feeling of excitement, the feeling of connection, sudden connection, surprising connection, new information streaming in, the possibility to channel and to really feel something. The sextile between the moon and Pluto is absolutely feeling like there's a definite step that you can take and that you can find a sense of control. So these are all really working in quite a great way. So yes, this whole thing is formed on the opposition between the sun and the moon, but the beautiful kite around it is showing that yes, there is a problem, but that the solution already exists. Whatever it is you're trying to work out, it is absolutely possible to find your way through this. And yeah, Jupiter is going to make the problem seem much bigger, which actually is in all of our benefit. It is serving us. Jupiter is aggravating the energies of this full moon so that we really see our patterns. And then the sun, Uranus and Pluto are just lined up beautifully to help us find the solutions once we fully have identified the problem. We've also got Jupiter and Venus in an ongoing trine. These are the two benefics of the solar system. These are the two that are related to relatedness, flow, luck, well-being, feeling good. So Jupiter and Venus here are perfectly placed, again, helping everybody out. Now, there's a couple of other things. I did already mention the Venus opposition to Chiron. I mentioned that in my forecast last week, or for this coming week, for the 16th to 22nd of September, sorry. So if you do want to know more about that, go to that particular forecast where you can hear about it from your own sign's perspective. In fact, you could even look at the Venus, your Venus sign, if you know that as well, just for fun. And there's also a Mars in an opposition to Ceres. I think that's absolutely, Ceres is about how we're being looked after and are we nurturing ourselves. So Mars in opposition, I think, is showing that at some level we don't feel very vital. We don't feel like we've been looking after ourselves. It's time to take action so that we do feel like we can look after ourselves. One thing I do notice with this as well, whoever we identify as a mum or a mum energy might suddenly be seen as oppositional. So, if you've got ongoing issues with your mum, do something to make it work if you can, or, stay well away. But, this is kind of showing that there is a need to understand the mum principle, but also to take action and try to work with both. How can we appreciate the mum energy and also recognize that we, when we are looked after, we don't necessarily thrive as much, but when we have to look after ourselves, we do thrive, but then maybe we don't, we don't like our mums so much, or the mum energy. So how can you receive love and support and still be motivated enough to thrive on your own and stand up on your own 2 feet? So I think that's quite an interesting possibility. So that's the planetary picture. Now, the galactic or the cosmic one. Now, like I said, I am doing a separate video about this, which I'm releasing on the day of the eclipse. I've interviewed a galactic astrologer, a lovely, lovely person, lovely woman called Trassa from Goddess Inspire. We had a lovely conversation. In fact, we've had 2. The first one hasn't got video on, so I will release the audio as well because it's beautiful. And we've been talking about the Galactic Centre. At the center of our galaxy. This is apparently our home, like the home to, the galaxy, the Milky Way that we are resident in. Our solar system is kind of doing its own thing in this particular galaxy. So the Galactic Center is about our origins. At some level, it's the origins of everything. Like you might say, oh, I live at this number house, in this street, in this town, in this county, in this country, maybe even on this continent, and then on Earth. The next part would be in the solar system, and then we might say in the Milky Way. So it's like making that address even bigger, like where are we really coming from? So the Galactic Center is in an ongoing square to Neptune. And what this means is this particular eclipse is also in a square to the galactic center. And of course, the galactic center is in opposition to Jupiter. So, Jupiter is absolutely inflaming our energies and enhancing them and making them bigger. So if you're feeling nervously creative, if you're losing yourself in some way, and it could be deeply romantic as well, because Neptune is also a sexual and a romantic kind of planet as well. There's a lot of easing into situations and easing out, like Neptune is quite easy and creative. So, this could absolutely enhance all sort of romantic energies at this time and really raise the game. And the galactic center in opposition, it's almost saying, like you can raise your energies in terms of the human perspective, from the egoic perspective, like when we let our emotions get the better of us, or we let our pride and our personality get the better of us, we're really developing our ego. It's our ego going crazy. It's like our ego on steroids. Jupiter here is absolutely egging us on to be our most absolute real self and our real emotions, but they are the real almost the parodies of ourselves. So Jupiter is absolutely getting us to play the game of masks, whereas the galactic center down here is encouraging us. Now, obviously, it's a gazillion miles, 1,000 million, I don't know how many miles away. It's like an inconceivable amount of distance between us and the galactic center. However, it's like the metaphysical and actual physical core of who we are. There is something calling us back. It's like that inner knowing, that inner sense, like the inner mum or the inner dad. It's that unknown but possibly felt and understood that we are part of something. And so the galactic center is actually taking us inward on an inward journey. Jupiter's taking us on an outward journey. So, which way are you going to go on this? Are you going to go big on your personality and your masks, or are you going to take your masks off and think, okay, what would it mean for me to be completely galactic right now? What would it mean? Which of my belief systems might I need to shift right now to be my galactic self? So again, a lot of it depends on your perspective and how open you are to these ideas. And also, what do you sense? Does one of those really resonate with you and the other less so? But yeah, there is definitely a galactic theme going on. And so I think that's probably why it appears that politics have got so egoic and so Jupiterian at the moment. It just, the patterns are getting bigger and bigger and wilder and a lot more parodied. And yet sort of galactic center is really wanting us to focus on actually what makes us, what's at the core of us, what are we really? And, we might really identify with our flesh and bones and our blood, but actually we might realize that we are a soul. We are, what are we? It's that big eternal question. My 5-year-old comes out with some classics. 2 days ago, he woke me up and he said, Mom, wake up. Mom, wake up. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're beautiful like all the creatures, even goblins, sharks. I don't know what that meant. But anyway, that aside, he then asked me about existence and, are we all going to die? And are we going to run out of water? Are we going to run out of resources? And he's thinking, in terms of infinity. And we had a conversation, and I said, "What is it that dies? What are you afraid of?" And we were talking all around the subject. And really, what was coming out was, there is this inner, an inner faith, and yet in this world, things maybe don't look like they're connected by faith. I think my son knows that he is part of something. He feels it, and yet he sees facts and figures and things come up, and as we go about our days and see different things, there are these big questions that come up. And so I do think that question and that longing to belong and longing to know where we're from is a really strong theme right now. But anyway, let's move on to the asteroids. So, actually, I'll share these in a different video. Actually, before we go to the asteroids, I want to have a look at the Sabian symbols. So you might have seen that I've done a couple of videos with Linda Hill, who's got this fantastic website called www.sabiansymbols.com. And she's written a book, a beautiful book, and her interpretations are online on her website. Essentially, there are 360 degrees in a circle and 360 degrees in the zodiac. From 0 degrees Aries to 29 degrees Aries, and so on and so forth, all through the signs. And so this particular eclipse is at 25 degrees in the sign of Pisces. Now, there is a meaning for each degree of the zodiac, and you can look them up. And I always find that there's a really interesting take on this. These messages are channeled, beautifully channeled and translated, and there's an uncanniness that I usually notice about them. Now, when you do go to the website, you put in the degree you're looking for, and it automatically rounds it up to the next one. So anyway, the Sabian symbol for this particular eclipse, funnily enough, is called a new moon, even though it's a full moon. But a new moon reveals that it's time for people to go ahead with their different projects. It's an interesting title. So this shows being able to see or to accept when it's time for people to move on or to part from each other. They need to go ahead with their different projects. Their focus has changed, and quite possibly they've parted ways. There's a picture here of new beginnings. People will have their own response to situations, and not everyone will react in the same way. It can be a good idea to direct some energy into your desires or projects at this time. Light a candle, state your intentions with honesty and love. I love that part. Thank you, Linda. Diversifying, applying talents in new directions, people splitting up and splitting off, new opportunities and potentials, divorces, new jobs, directions, destinies, new eras. So, this eclipse is also carrying the energy of a new beginning, but a new beginning where you recognize that at some level you've grown apart from people. Like, maybe some people or situations are just from a different part of your story, and your story is ready to evolve in a new direction right now. And this is said with honesty and love. It's not necessarily about cursing the other. It's about recognizing that you have different needs now, and that you might be ready to start a new project or start a new direction in a new way. And that because of that, there are maybe some goodbyes. There are, you're coming to an end of a scenario. You might find that you've fallen out with people in your community or with your family. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to say goodbye, like a really big goodbye, but maybe that you just are contacting people that you want to be with. And that's a very different energy. It's less about cutting off, but more about moving in the direction that is feeling right for you. But as Linda very wisely says, when you're looking at a sign, it's also interesting to look at the opposite sign. And of course, the opposite sign is where the sun is. And so what is the sun representing at 25 degrees Virgo? That equates to Virgo 26. And so this is an interesting title. A boy with a censer, not like censorship, but like one of those hanging things. A censer serves near the priest at the altar. So this symbol implies doing an apprenticeship or spending time with someone who knows about a skill, craft, or profession, or being in an authoritarian position with someone younger or less experienced who's rising up through the ranks, learning as they go. It doesn't matter what part you're playing. Even the smallest contribution is an important part of the whole. Give reverence and respect to everyday routines and find hope renewed through the promise of what's to come in the future. Either your time is coming as you grow and mature and take a higher position in life, or you're handing over the reins to someone younger who's prepared to carry on with the work. Doing with silence and devotion, participating in the toil, but not the glory, altars and shrines, incense and candles, passing down wisdom and knowledge, work experience. I love that because they do kind of go hand in hand. If you are letting go of something, or even better, just moving in the direction that you want to go in? Are you doing that as an initiate? Are you doing that as a teacher? Are there new skills for you to learn? And if so, there's the advice on how you might choose to do that. So both of these symbols are equally as important. So, I love the fact that this is saying that you might be handing the reins over to somebody, that you might be doing your own like passing out parade, like letting something gently and gracefully go on its own direction. When your kids are going through different changes, and your relationship with them is changing and they're needing to do things on their own to discover independence. Or, you might be asserting more yourself. You might be taking over the reins from someone else. You might be about to become the head of the family if you're looking after elderly parents, and their own role is changing. So what I'm really getting here is, yes, we're all going in a new direction according to what's right for us right now vibrationally, and there might be a handover and also a rising up of experience and responsibility. So to me, it all feels like there's all change, and I love it. It feels quite exciting. So here are the asteroids, and this is something I like to do, and I do this every new moon and full moon. I look at the particular moon in question, and I find which asteroids are around the new moon or the full moon and the sun, and which are square to them. And so these are the main ones that came up. So the first one that came up and the closest to one of the planets was Niobe. Now, it's interesting, we've been talking about pride with Jupiter, because Niobe's story is that she was really vain, and she was very proud, very, very happy with her lot, but maybe a bit snooty and snotty about it. And in the way of good old Greek mythology, she got real punished hard. It's actually quite a sad story. But Niobe had 7 sons and 7 daughters, and she was boasting about them and kind of disparaging. I can't remember which goddess she was disparaging, but she was putting herself above other people, and in that sort of Greek way, was it I can't remember the characters now, but 2 of the gods murdered her children, and then Niobe in her grief was turned to stone, so she was basically made to grieve throughout eternity. And I think there is a rock that looks like a woman that has water coming out of it. I think it's called the grieving stone. So it's a really strong message of, about where pride comes before a fall, where we're so up our own arses that we absolutely think that we're better than everyone else, and that we are also kind of putting people down. We're stepping on other people, we're stepping over other people. And so that is absolutely highlighted as an ongoing theme at the time of this eclipse. I think that's important, especially seeing, that it's also in a square to Jupiter, really pulling on that Jupiter theory. The next one is Atlantis, which for, if you like past lives or talking about past lives and future lives and sort of traveling through timelines and being all sort of real cosmic, then Atlantis is the other like real close asteroid to the sun. And it's about connecting to past lives, to Atlantis, that deep knowing, that sense, maybe working with crystals, maybe working with oneness. It also says separation comes from greed and leads to complete destruction, which is interesting because, Niobe was separating herself. Niobe thought she was better than everyone else. And, her complete destruction came about because of that. Well, the legends of Atlantis is that people got so sure of themselves and got so sort of arrogant and greedy with their powers that they started to use them incorrectly, leading to the complete destruction of Atlantis. So it's interesting that those 2 asteroids are just either side of the sun, and the sun here is trying to get you to live your life right. The sun in sign of Virgo with Mercury not far off, like the sun absolutely is wanting to be rational, wanting to get the life right, really kind of cutting through old dead wood and letting things go. And yet there is a danger possibly in doing that too much. You might be too arrogant. You might think that it's really important that you do all of this extra work, that you have to fathom everything out, that everything's in your hands. So I think, that the sun is how we're emitting our energy. So that I think is a warning sign for this particular eclipse. And then there's Thereus, and you'll see I put a little star next to it because there is somebody on YouTube who's got a really good newsletter called The Sky Priestess. The address for her YouTube channel is at The Sky Priestess. And she talks about Thereus quite a bit. And it's an asteroid that doesn't, I think it's a centaur, it doesn't get that much, it doesn't get that much attention. And Thereus is known for wildness, lawlessness, the hunt. I've when I was reading up about it, it's really, really strong in some of our most like wild and untamed, unkempt kind of characters that we know, like Courtney Love, for instance, is somebody who has a reputation of being completely wild and uncontrollable, who apparently has got a very strong Thereus. And there's a whole list of celebrities who, are known for their completely wild behavior, like serial killers and things like that, people who feel absolutely so wild and full of life that, they, other people, like man's rules don't mean anything to them. They are absolutely being themselves. And so this is an archetype of wildness, lawlessness, and the hunt. And this is the key, and this is what the Sky Priestess talks about, our vulnerability to the hunters who drag you back to their cave. And so it's also a story about being watched as prey, versus I didn't finish off that sentence. Like, you are being watched as prey versus being strong and thinking of yourself as, so you might feel completely safe but not realize that somebody is watching you. And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because if somebody has got their eye on you from afar, you might not know, because I think people who are hunters will go much further to attain their kill or to trap or to harm their prey. And the prey are usually oblivious to it because, the prey or the beautiful people who just want to be harmonious, that just want to get on and stuff, I think they treat everyone like themselves, so there's a very different energy, the energy of people who will take much bolder actions to get what they want. And I think Thereus represents that. So there's a big theme there. Thereus is also in a conjunction to the sun and to Niobe and to Atlantis. So there's this very strong pride, vanity, greed, and lawlessness and wildness. Really strong feelings. So, what I'm wondering right now is, like, what stories are going to be coming up over the next 3 weeks, like, from now until the eclipse. And I always think from new moon to full moon, and like that 2 week period, the energy is ongoing, and then each time we get one of these moon movements, like from new moon to full moon, it carries on until the next moon comes along. I always think the eclipses almost last 3 to 4 weeks. They have a really, really strong energy. So I wonder what stories we're going to hear about in the media or learn about personally, where there are characters that don't know when to stop and who are absolutely lawless. And also stories about prey being watched, people being dragged back. Interesting, wild times. And thankfully we've got one in a different place now, and this is Varda. Now this isn't a Greek god. This is Tolkien's queen. So this comes from literature. So she is known as being noble, lofty, and sublime. She's responsible for situating the stars in the heavens above. So really what I'm getting there is that Varda has this energy of enlightenment and refinement, and knows that she's responsible for everything, you know, like Niobe and Atlantis and Thereus, you know, they are separate from everyone at some level. You know, the stories are showing separation, you know, from me and you know, seeing ourselves as separate beings, you know, me and my husband seeing him as a separate being. Every time we're seeing someone as a separate being, we might take responsibility for ourselves, but we might not be taking responsibility for other people. What I get here with this comment that she's responsible for situating the stars in the heavens above, that kind of level of responsibility is recognizing that we're all responsible for each other. And if one person suffers, you're suffering as well, you know. So it's interesting that Varda is about this real sort of elevated principle of oneness and unity, and that Varda is in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre, which is all about the oneness and the connection of where we're coming from, and the question of, you know, what are we in our nature? And to me, this is absolutely showing, this is saying we are made of stardust. You know, we are from the stars. So yeah, I think, you know, we're going to have some really big conversations coming up over the next few weeks that could take us to some really wild and very strong behaviors and actions, and also show us that actually maybe we're not here, maybe we want to be here, and maybe we don't want to be in the drama of it, although I'm sure lots of people will get hooked into the drama of it, but we could actually come here and kind of observe it all and almost say, oh, you know, how can I be love right now so that the whole world will feel it? Who knows? Each of these zodiac forecasts is going to have a generic part today, because I've been doing a lot of recording and my voice is getting quite delicate. So the thing that I really want you to understand about this particular partial lunar eclipse is that you can look at the eclipse as if it's a one-time event. You know, every moment in time is a one-time event, but it's part of a story. I'm calling this the never-ending story because you know, it's like there is always a new chapter, and that chapter always has relevance to past chapters, and it is also setting the scene for future chapters, and it's a story that is ongoing. It's a story of humanity, and it's a story of you. I am looking at the eclipses that we've already had this year, and also the context of where this one is and where it's leading to. And as I can see this story, it starts on the 25th of March, that there was something going on for every one of us that we were wanting to release from. So if you can cast your mind back to what was going on for you towards the end of March, coming into April, what was really going on, what was on your mind, what you were focusing on, what you were troubled with, there was a sense of needing to draw something to the end and release it, let go of something to move beyond. There felt like there was a new beginning, something new to grasp. And to be able to do that, we needed to let go of the past. Then we had the very strong total solar eclipse on the 8th of April in a conjunction with Chiron, no less. And that really showed us the pain of staying in our stuck positions. You know, I don't know what was going on for you around the week of April, like the first and second week of April. But, you know, where we were holding on to our patterns, that was where we were coming into pain. And so it was a moment of us collectively saying and individually saying, no more, this has to end. And I need to set off on this new direction. And that's what we've been doing really up until this point in time where we are right now, for the partial lunar eclipse. Now, this partial lunar eclipse has the energy of pride, the energy of greed. It has the energy of being better than everyone else. And it's absolutely that energy of being better than everyone else and being proud in this particular chart is absolutely associated with rationality. you know, anywhere where you're being rational right now, you're running the risk of your rationality running amok, and that your rationality is like a mask that you've been wearing for quite a few months, most likely as a coping mechanism. It may well be that back in March, April time, when things were getting quite painful for a lot of people, that you chose rationality because it felt like the next best thing. It felt like the easy thing to do. Let's be rational. Let's go into the mind. Let's kind of kill off the feelings. Let's follow what looks practical, sensible, what looks like it's going to gain acceptance from more people, gain support because it's normalized, and so rationality has become something that is absolutely revered right now. This kind of big rationalized mind, and there is a pride associated with it. The energy of Niobe, the asteroid in this particular chart, is absolutely saying pride comes before a fall, and that where we've brought ourselves right now, even though we've brought ourselves to a place that appears like we're really doing something and it's going really, really well, Atlantis is in this chart showing us that if we're holding on to our output, like our success right now, holding on to it like it makes us better, then we may well find that we are sowing the seeds of our own destruction. So it's quite a strong metaphor to get out of the rational mind, because one of the things with the rational mind is it thinks it's right. And anyone that uses rationality, and obviously I'm using numbers and charts and patterns, and so I guess I sound like I'm being right as well. I'm using astrology to be right, but we all have our little patterns, we all have our little masks, our little ways of finding how we're right. And by default, when we are right, we're making everyone else wrong. Like once we hold a position of rightness, righteousness, when we hold on to any position and say it's obviously right and it's right because of this, and this, we run the risk of putting being right as more important in our life than actually being happy. And so I think this full moon, the sort of creative side, the beautiful creative side of the moon and Neptune, it's there to show us a way to be creative and to tap back into the intuition. It's showing you and me, and everyone else, how we can be more delicious, how we can be more sublime, how we can be more forgiving, more loving, how we can see other people's patterns, but we don't have to make them wrong, how we can see other people's patterns and maybe we can accept them because they are another human being and they have their own point of view, just like you do, just like I do. And we can forgive ourselves, maybe for judging them, could be also quite useful. But there is this opportunity to create for the sake of just creating, to explore where feeling takes us, explore where our intuition is nudging us to go, explore into a place of freedom where, and I love this phrase, which I got from Access Consciousness, and I might balls it up, I might not get it right, but a place where everything exists and nothing is judged. Now, that's not to say that I'm condoning loads of awful stuff, by the way. I'm not using that as an excuse to do that. But what I'm offering to you in this moment, before I show you how this might be applying in your astrological sense, according to your sign, what I'm seeing is we are offered a glimpse of where we might get a sense of salvation, where we might get a sense of release, like true release, not the constructed release we had back in the earlier parts of the year, where we were like going to rationality and facts and journals and this person told me this, therefore it's right. We are coming into our intuition. We are feeling and sensing our way forwards, because actually that is where true happiness is, I think. And maybe that's just because that's my own judgment being like added in here. I'm trying to do this as naturally and as gracefully as possible. But the phrase that's coming up is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And I think the goal of this is actually to expand us beyond rightness to where we can feel happy in ourselves. Because actually what's going on with everyone else is none of our business. What someone else thinks of you is none of your business. The only thing that is your business is what's going on for you right now, how you're feeling in yourself. And if you're judging others and holding on to judgments, no doubt your body is feeling a ton of weight and stiffness and irritation and all sorts of things. And, you know, when we're holding into all of these slightly negative, separate feelings, you know, like I'm getting this from the asteroid picture. You know, the asteroids aligning to this eclipse are absolutely about being right, being separate, separating ourselves. And yet this eclipse is all about noticing the cost, the true cost of separation. You know, so separation appears to give us maybe space to be ourselves. It gives us independence, maybe. It maybe gives us the joy of being right for a moment or two. But it's also disconnecting us from people that matter and opportunities and our intuition and our innate knowing. And that's where the Galactic Centre comes in. It's absolutely the search for the big I, like, who am I? And I'm talking to you right now, and you might be thinking I'm talking to you, your body. But I'm really hoping I'm not, and no offense to your body. I'm talking to you, the eternal being, the person, or the energy that is animating your body, the life force. That's who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you, who I believe is the true. And of course, but to me, this eclipse is absolutely about the big I. Who are you? And this is what the Galactic Centre is giving you. And I don't think you can find the meaning of the Galactic Centre when you're being rational. Sure, you could go to a website and look up something, you know, from NASA, you know, some scientific description of what the Galactic Centre is. But to really understand the truth, we have to go within. You know, and this has been a theme coming up for the last couple of months, last couple of weeks with clients, and, you know, the themes of life and death and rebirth. They're really, really strong at the moment. They're coming through in so many inquiries and so many comments, and, you know, in my interactions with other people, and obviously the astrology. So there is a rebirth going on at the moment, and, you know, we all have a choice. And yes, some of us have better choices. Other people, you know, some people have a choice of two pretty bad options. Some people maybe have a great option. Some people have a choice between two fantastic things. But the one thing that we all have is the choice. And so if we've got two bad options, we might choose the lesser of the two evils. But, you know, we all do have a choice, and that is something that we can rejoice in, you know, because the choice is absolutely where we can make a difference, where we can start to make a decision about which way we want to go. And the other thing with this chart, with this partial lunar eclipse, is that Jupiter is inflating everything, you know, and Jupiter is inflating the egos. Jupiter is inflating our responses, our canned responses based on rational thinking, you know. And by these canned responses, I'm thinking, where are you for formulaic? You know, I realize where I'm formulaic. You know, there are a few bits that I slowed down on and thought, oh, am I being formulaic here? You know? So, like, we all have our formulas. We all have our winning things that we go back to again and again and again, myself included. But where are you being formulaic right now? And Jupiter is going to blow it up so you can see it. Jupiter as well, where are you being emotional? Where are you losing control of that sense of you, like the truth, that you that I was talking to, or hopefully am still talking to? Where are you getting emotional, so emotional that you can't connect to the true you? Because Jupiter is absolutely inflaming that. He's helping to distract you. He's absolutely helping to take you out of yourself so you don't have to consider things from the eternal perspective. And yet this is actually the cure, I think, for this particular eclipse. It's to realize that what's going on around us feels very, very real, and we're absolutely in the stories of it. And yet we can also turn down the volume. We don't have to be in every story. We don't have to be in everyone else's story to the same volume and intensity. We can step outside of stories, and we can step away from narratives, and we can actually find our own narrative. And so again, you know, there is this very strong, again, it's going back to the big I, the search for the eternal you. So what I'm going to do now is go over to your sign so you get the understanding of how this eternal you might be revealing itself. Because, you know, the 25th of March was about noticing the patterns we were wanting to release. The 8th was about confirming and getting a new intention, a new direction because of something that we were uncomfortable about. This one is going back to the original problem, like going deeper. I think what happened back in March, April was we didn't go back deep enough. You know, we went to rationality and it felt good, but we realized it hasn't actually solved our issue. You know, are you happier now than you were back in April? And where you're not happier than you were back then, you need to go a little bit back further. That's where your answer is. You know, we are going back to go forwards with this particular eclipse. And then the next eclipse on the 2nd of October is the full resolution. It's like wrapping up this whole eclipse year, and it's positive. It is walking forwards and knowing that we have slain a dragon of some sort, that we've got to the bottom of something. And again, you know, this particular eclipse is going to be kind of replicated next September. You know, we will have another lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces on the 7th of September next year, 2025. And, you know, we'll get another go at this at a deeper level, a cleaner level. It should go much easier, much easier. In fact, we can use the creative promise of it to a much greater degree. So what I'm going to do now is hop over to your sign and finish this off from your unique zodiac sign perspective. But ultimately, I hope that if you are searching for if you're searching for that spark of divinity, really wanting to feel it, now is the time to do it. You might be attracted to particular lessons or learnings or new teachers. You might notice things coming up on Facebook or YouTube or TikTok or wherever. You know, it might be that you're in the street and a little bird crosses your path and you realize there's some wisdom there. I don't know, but there are teachers everywhere. I really feel like the divine is talking to us right now, helping us to feel freer. So let's go to your sign now. So Aries, on this eternal loop, with this particular eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse, we're currently here in the process that started over here. So back in March, the original scenario coming up was to do with fulfilling relationships and how your relationships weren't feeling so fulfilled, and they were actually feeling quite stressful, and it felt like everyone else was causing drama for you and not allowing, because you were so wrapped in everyone else's drama, it was harder for you to reveal your true self. Then at the time of the 8th of April, when we had the total solar eclipse, a really painful and sharp and burning total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, that was occurring here. And that was absolutely showing up as an identity crisis, really showing where almost like you were wearing the attack and wondering how you could move forwards whilst feeling extremely vulnerable. So the level of rationality and the masks that would have been created back then were to hide the pain of some kind of identity vulnerability. Now what's coming up, the moon is here. It's actually in the 12th house. It's in a place of deep mystery, really showing you that the identity that you were thinking about in terms of who you were back in March and April are actually no longer valid. There's an extra depth. There's an increasing depth. There's an extra intensity. There's an extra there's an unplanned version of you that you're not quite aware of yet that is wanting to come out. I really see that this is the divine you. This is a spark of divinity, but you have to almost go backwards to find it. So what I would say is the spark of divinity that you will likely connect into or can connect into, that will take you to the resolution spot of the annular solar eclipse that's happening here in a few weeks, in a 2.5 weeks time. You know, the spark, the thought that's going to get you there to a new, altered and corrected path on your relationships. It's the thought of one sec. Where is my softness, my strength? Where is my dreaminess more important than I ever realized? Where is my defined personality selling me short? Where have I caged my personality around an idea when in fact I have much greater potentials? As you consider questions like that and go inwards in yourself, you can actually remember times in your life where you have been bigger, where you have been less defined, where you have been more dreamy, where you have actually like paid attention to your dreams, maybe written about them, woken up and thought, oh, I wonder what that means. Where you've paid attention to your daydreams, where different things have come up from your unconscious mind and you actually paid attention to them. That's where the real true wealth is. And if you can explore this on the day of the eclipse, then as the annular solar eclipse comes up, I really see the correction in your relationships. It's allowing you to relate to others in a much more wholesome way, a full way. It's almost like you've pared down your personality to cope with being in a relationship. And that would have felt really right. And it would have made complete sense at the time. But in fact, by cutting off some of your personality, there's less of you to relate to. And therefore, your partner has got less of you. What's needed right now is the fullness of you, the real true fullness of you that includes all sorts of extra quirks and desires and intentions and intuitions and all sorts. And as you add them back in with your personality, as you allow them to come up, your relationships will get on track. They will get much more quickly back on track. So I hope that's helpful as a little bit of sort of cosmic guidance to help with this partial lunar eclipse. So there you go, Aries. Lots of love to you. Have a good one. So Taurus, the eclipse story, and if I carry on with the eclipse story for you, on the 25th of March, we had the lunar eclipse, and that was really highlighting your life coming out of control, feeling a bit like your life was a bit chaotic. You couldn't quite get a sense of relief. It just felt like it's too much, and most likely your health was suffering. It felt like your diet, you couldn't quite control things. To me, it just felt like you were out of sync, almost like you were out of natural timing. And then I think around the time of the total solar eclipse, if you may well have gone into your own space and thought, okay, well, the only way I can get my life sorted is if I cut off from people and go into myself. Now, out of all of the different signs of the zodiac, I actually think you went into yourself to in the way that I was describing earlier, like going into your intuition, going into this deep process and analyzing things and coaching yourself and looking at the deeper reasons. And yet, most likely what actually happened was you cut off the people that might be needed to be able to give you a more balanced view of what's going on. When you cut off and go into your own world, you can sometimes become unapproachable and unreachable. And so it becomes more difficult actually to come out of that. And at the time of the total solar eclipse, you might have decided that it was much easier to just do things on your own, and that you didn't need other people's sort of interference, that you were fine on your own, and that, and it is quite lonely. Now, the thing with this is a very intuitive place, and yet when we're on our own a lot, it can also bring up neuroticism. It can bring up upset. It can bring up unhealed stuff. It can bring up a lot of fears and anxieties. And so if you've stayed in this alone place too much and done too much coping, you may have found that you've got a little bit depressive over this last 6 months. Like, how has your mood improved? Has it improved, or has it actually got slightly more frantic? that may be because you haven't got the right people in your life. And so this particular partial lunar eclipse is taking you back and reminding you of how popular you are. It's reminding you that there are people that want to connect with you. And actually, if you just take a moment, and yes, the moment of the eclipse is quite, it can be quite tense, but it's not something that you need to do on your own anymore. And so what I actually think around the time of this full moon is it's about the acceptance that no man is an island. And actually, it's time to go back to your inherent sense of who you are, which actually is to be in communion. You know, the sign of Taurus, it's ruled by Venus. It's meant to be relating. And so, you know, your survival strategy took you out of your own pattern, and it's now time to get back into your pattern. The great news is, as you come back into your pattern and you feel like you've got the support of people around you, by the time we're going back into the annular solar eclipse that's coming up on the 2nd, you will be feeling a lot more in control of your life. You know, all of a sudden, the feeling that there is support around you, that you're not alone, that you are in good company, and that there are people who are also going through the same thing, who might have some good advice. They might not, but you know, there is that communion, the sense that you are connected. That's actually the best way for you to get connected back into your life and get organized again and to set off on this new path. And so that is my offering to you. I hope this is helpful in understanding the eclipse from a whole new perspective, from the perspective of pride and arrogance and separation. It's the separation from you and other people that has been the most harmful over the last 6 months. So absolutely go forth and connect with people who you absolutely do know and trust, even if you might have acted in pride and pushed them away. Maybe it's time to just build a bridge. So I hope that's helpful in you finding that connection to other people, but actually getting back into your own pattern and into your own meaning. So lots of love to you. Have a great eclipse and catch you another time. Gemini. So this one, right. So the eclipse story, which I'm talking about on the search to you and getting back into your pattern and flow. The eclipse story started in this place of creativity for you earlier this year on the 25th of March. 25th of March. Sorry. And it was highlighting this sense of dissatisfaction with other people getting in the way, and this need to get creative, and this almost frustration that you're not actually being your highly creative self. You know, it's felt like you haven't been able to succeed as much. And, you know, the energy of wanting to create and design and play and have fun whilst you're working on something that feels like a passion has been really intense. And so I think that was the initial problem. And as problems go, Gemini, it's not a massive one, I have to say. It's actually it's one that you can work through. Now, at the time of the total solar eclipse, that was taking you into a place where here, in a conjunction with Chiron, it was taking you into a place where other people were really wanting to get involved. And it probably felt like, as you collaborated with other people, that fresh ideas and insights were going to come forwards. And it probably has happened like that, that the more you've created with other people, the better things have gone. It's opened doorways for you. It's opened pathways. And it's made it easier for you. You've learned a lot along the way in that collaboration. But now you might be getting to that moment of the eclipse that's coming up in a few days' time. And it just feels like it's time to move on now. It's time to get back into your style. And so actually, to find your way forwards, you almost have to find yourself back to the original desire of success, back to what success means for you, because it won't be the same as what success means to the people you've been collaborating with, to the friends that you've been hanging out with, you know, who appear to be in the same track as you, because your success is your success. And it's now time to step closer to the dream of what you've been hoping for. This particular lunar eclipse, I think, is showing that with gratitude for the last 6 months, gratitude for the things that you've shared with people and the things that you've learned from people, is actually bringing you to a new place and a new direction in your success, like a new learning. It's almost like there's a key that is just about to unlock. And it's giving you that opportunity to be dreamy and creative again, but on your own terms, almost like you're stepping into the power of it. This is a really powerful eclipse for you. And bearing in mind that in September of 2025, there's going to be another one in this part of your chart. I'm going to say these eclipses and next year's eclipses are here to serve you, to raise you up a whole new level. You know, this is bringing you up to a new level of creativity and success in your life. Now, this particular eclipse could feel really big, and as such, I think it would be best spent playing with the energy. Jupiter's in your first house at the moment, so you're going through massive identity shifts, but play, like write, but brainstorms, get as creative as you can, get all your ideas out there, because the next step is to go back. The annular solar eclipse on the 2nd is back in this place of you creating your work and not needing the support from other people. And so that's the correction. I think if we go back right to the start, the mistake you made was not to trust yourself enough and to take other people's advice more seriously than your own deeply held wisdom. So I see that this particular eclipse is bringing you back into the sense of possibility and the idea of your direction, so that by the 2nd of October, you are taking control of your direction again and your creativity, and you're knowing that you can do it and you don't necessarily need the help you thought you did. So I hope that's helpful to you, Gemini. I hope you enjoy your eclipse and catch you another time. Cancer. Now, this eclipse period throughout the whole of 2024, and I'm drawing this eternal sort of the symbol of eternity, the figure of 8. We're going back to the 25th of March to the first eclipse, which happened just here in your chart, in a place of the family, in the home. And so it felt like there was something going on at home that just felt most likely really sort of unsettling. You know, that full moon eclipse right down here, the first eclipse of the season, it would have raised a lot of energy in terms of your home and your directions at home and how comfortable it was. Most likely it was feeling that the people around you were highly emotional, and the feeling of coping at home would have been quite difficult. Now what we're learning is, you know, after that, the total solar eclipse, which represents the sort of big choice that you were making in early April, that's attached here to a certain amount of pain in terms of your career. To me, it feels like you had to either step further into your career or step away from your career, almost like the intensity of your attention to your career changed as a result of what was going on at home. And that has kept you going for the last 6 months, and it's helped the problem so far, and it's created a bit of space for you because I guess the space between the home and the career is offering you a different perspective, but it hasn't resolved what was going on at home. And again, I don't know what was going on at home, only that it felt highly energetic, and that, you know, maybe you weren't quite in control as much as you'd liked. Now this eclipse that's coming up on Wednesday, the 18th of September, is over here, and it's encouraging you to go to the place of spirituality and to come out of your career. So yes, going into your career gave you the space, and changing your pace with your career. Either you did slightly less so that you had a bit more space for yourself, or you were doing slightly more so you didn't have to be at home with all the drama queens. Actually, that was a great distraction, but now where you need to be actually is coming back into yourself and coming into learning. The 9th house is encouraging things like study, reading, learning, adventuring, taking yourself off on a bit of a quest. like a hero's journey. It's all about changing and shifting your perspective. This would be a really, really good time to read one of those books or do one of those courses that you've had in the back of your mind for a really long time. What is essential right now is to go into a place of eternal curiosity. Then the following eclipse that's coming up is actually back in the home. So we're returning to where we started with a completely renovated perspective. And so what this is really showing me is that the learning that you can undertake right now is essential to create the mindset that knows how to be at home. It's almost like the more you learn, the more you refresh, the more you open up to new perspectives, the easier things at home smooth out. And it feels like you can take a new leap forwards in terms of your home and how you live and how settled you feel. So just once again, it's not that you're stepping away from your career, but your focus, your solution that you had at the time, which was, okay, my career is my strategy. It's my place of safety, or whatever it was that you were deciding. Now you don't need that anymore. That can just tick along. And the true learning that you need is coming from a place of inquiry, not from earnings. So I don't know if that's opened up your situations or offered you a new perspective. But I do think that by the 2nd of October, by the time that comes on, and that's got really beautiful astrology, I have to say, you'll be feeling like you're making a new stand in the way you are at home, and that things can move forwards with a whole lot of ease and grace, and hopefully some glory as well. So there you go. I hope that's helpful, Cancer. Bye for now. Hey there, Leo. So this is a kind of rounding up of the eclipses and how you are kind of searching for meaning right now, how it's all coming out in your life. So the first thing is, on the 25th of March, we had the lunar eclipse, and that was here in your chart, in this place of community, in siblings, in gossip and friendliness and emails, and like very much at a local level. And it felt like there was a need to release from, a situation to do with your locality, or how much time, was spent in this particular part of your life. And it felt like a bit of a problem, quite a difficult problem. Then we had the next particular eclipse on the 8th of April, and that was occurring here at quite a high and lofty and noble part of your chart. And it was in a conjunction to Chiron, so it was showing a certain amount of pain, but it was almost showing that your values back in April were so high, you had such high ideals that you were hoping to use in your life, and maybe your high ideals actually took you off on a bit of a duff route. It was a bit like you were clinging on to some high ideals and knowledge and possible spiritual ideals as well, but maybe they were becoming part of the problem. It was, to me, it felt like your decisions that kind of moved you out of your community was to take a higher view of your community, and like to move away, to put space in between you and them, and to learn more about the world, and to pretty much stay at this slightly higher, more aloof level. Now, actually, whilst that has worked so far, I think some strategies, if they're coming out of avoidance rather than coming from a place of real desire, they can often go wrong. And so now the energy for this coming up eclipse is happening in this part of your chart, which is about, I think it is about a rite of passage. It is about maybe becoming a bit more, like, coming clean about it, recognizing that actually up here, which is a really liberating place, and it's quite an uplifting place. This is a place of awakening and belief systems, but it was almost as if the belief systems were being used to almost as a prop to keep you away from the situations that were puzzling you. And actually what's coming up now, as maybe a more honest reflection of you, is to actually face the baggage, face the failed expectations, or face the guilt trips. I guess the words I'm looking for maybe is, and I can't remember what it's called now. There's a term that people use. One sec. I've got the word I was looking for. I think what may have happened over the course of this year is that you were bypassing one of your problems by applying sort of grander ideals and like taking a more spiritual view of it, because maybe you weren't ready to face the nitty-gritty of the situation and get to the heart of the situation. And actually what's coming up right now is this opportunity to go deeper into why this was coming up in the first place, so that you can really understand what was going on, and you don't have to judge it, and you don't have to judge yourself. In fact, probably what's needed is forgiveness, because that's what comes up in this house, the 8th house. It's a place of acceptance and forgiveness when we, are moving through the problems. And so whilst it felt like you'd made good on the initial situations that were showing up, it actually feels like this particular partial lunar eclipse is going to bring it all up again so that you can really address it. Now, where this is going from the 2nd of October is to the annular solar eclipse. And this is a new moon in the sign of Libra, back in this area of community. And so actually, I think what you're doing by really facing it and having the courage, and it feels like you've got the skills and the knowledge, and enough time has passed so that you've boosted yourself up now. I think by the 2nd of October, you've got a brand new opportunity to reveal yourself in a new way within your community and make it work. So the annular solar eclipse has beautiful astrology, loads of really supportive energies. So I think, face where you were bypassing, possibly spiritually bypassing, or unconsciously bypassing the situation because you needed to feel easy about it. Now you've got the patience and the strength and the forgiveness to actually go a bit deeper. So there you go. I hope that's helpful, Leo. I hope the eclipse weeks goes well for you, and catch you another time. Okay, so Virgo. So I'm looking at this, the whole flow of the eclipses this year. And obviously, at the start, I was talking in terms of looking for the big I, looking for the deeper you, and how that might be manifesting through the course of all of these eclipses. So the first one, the 25th of March, was about releasing yourself from a situation that wasn't working. And that was showing up here. In the second house. To me, that's about money. It's about your resources. It's about feeling like you don't have enough, and the panic that might come up from not being able to feel secure. So there's a feeling of insecurity, most likely. Quickly on the heels of that would have come the feeling of setting an intention and going in a new direction. That would have come up on the 8th of April. And that was really bringing you into your 8th house. Now, you've got Chiron going through this house at the moment. It's been going there for a long time, and it's not easy. Chiron really unearths loads of stuff. And so I think you were probably going into this real deep place of unearthing old memories and knowing what you need to shift on. Also, maybe you had a certain amount of pain in terms of shared assets that you had with a partner or with a family member. This is a place where, houses and mortgages and inheritances and things like that all come up. So, the idea of trying to create a new way was in dealing with the past, and really facing it and really going deep into it. And it might have been quite an intense time for you. You might have gone way too intense. The thing is, 6 months has passed since the initial wobble about your money. And how that was going. And actually, you're coming up to the resolution point of it around the 2nd of October. So here's how I think it's going to work. What you actually need to do now is come out of this place of intense inquiry and give yourself a bit of a break. Now actually, you know, this particular partial lunar eclipse is really highlighting the level of support you can get from family and friends and partners. To me, it feels like you know, what may have happened is in this place of joint assets, that you went into an intense place with your partner if you've got shared assets together, or that you went into an intense place of looking at everybody else's contributions and also looking at yours and trying to work out how it all fits in together. The 8th house is really quite messy. But now this particular eclipse is coming up and encouraging you to just be in the energy of the relationship, be in the energy of the sharing, being open about your fears, being open about how you felt, you know, in relation to their contributions and your contributions. But it's about opening and joining. You know, it's not about you having to do everything on your own anymore, and being intense about it. It is about you opening and feeling a connection again, knowing that connecting is the thing that is going to bring you everything that you need. And the funny thing is, after this particular eclipse, the following eclipse is coming back here to this place of your career, of your stability, of setting down, you know, like feeling secure, knowing that you've got enough. And so I think the missing key that you've been missing all this time is just to connect with people again, not to hold people at arm's length because you can't quite trust them. So, you know, right now you're going back to cause, you're going back to this sense of we are all people, we are all on this journey together, so that you can achieve wisdom and a sense of resolution about your money and your finances. So there you go, Virgo. I hope that's helpful for you. So much love to you. Okay, Libra. So I'm looking at these eclipses, in particular this eclipse in this very short reading, as a kind of cycle, you know, that we start here and we go around the loop and we end back here. And that appears to be the truth, because the eclipses started here on the 25th and they will end here on the 2nd of October. So the 25th of March to the 2nd of October, you get back to where you were, only a lot further down the line. So this all, you know, where it all kicked off, the initial lunar eclipse on the 25th of March was really bringing up stuff about yourself and your own personal power. Like, did you feel like you had enough power? Did you feel like you were recognized enough? Do you feel like you know who you are? Do you feel like it's difficult to define yourself because of your close links to other people and how much time you spend helping everyone? It almost felt like there was no time for you. And most likely, you know, what you did, rightly or wrongly, around the time of the total solar eclipse, in a response to your feeling of agitation and a need to kind of understand yourself more, what actually happened was you were actually deflecting and going into other people's business. So like your loved ones, their family, their friends, it's like you've been like doing this deluxe like service to them all. You've been helping people so much, almost as if you've been almost like a goody two shoes. I hope you don't mind me saying that, but it feels like you've been a goody two shoes. You've been helping everyone else and maybe hoping that some of that help might come back. Maybe you've been trying to feel better about yourself. You really don't need to, trust me. But to me, it feels like all of your energy has been back on everyone else and not really on yourself. What's happening now is we are stepping into the partial lunar eclipse, you know, and the moon is here, and you know, this is the thing that you're meant to be considering now. So it's like, stop doing things for your partner, stop doing things for your family and friends. You don't need to intensely be in their business anymore. You know, your life is not defined by the people in it. I mean, it is, but it needn't be. You know, they are people that you're sharing your life with. But now it's actually time to focus on you and getting your life right. You know, the focus of this particular lunar eclipse is going to be bringing up all those things you haven't done for yourself, but you've needed to, all of those jobs, like checking out your wardrobe and, you know, all those things that you've been doing for other people, but not doing for yourself. health checks are really important at this time. Starting to work out or like enjoying food in a way that feels really balanced and nourishing. You know, it's about getting your balance right because you're putting yourself first. The magical thing that's going to happen is, you know, after this lunar eclipse, 2 weeks later, the solar eclipse is launching here in your first house. And it's here. It's like a new moon. It is setting you off on a new direction, and you know it's in the sign of Libra. This is your new moon to launch yourself forwards again. This is the pattern that's going to really help you. I really think this whole year, you know, in sort of abandoning yourself in favor of other people is to actually bring you back to a better knowledge of yourself. And here's the key: we're also having a similar eclipse pattern next year, whereby we are having the partial lunar eclipse in Pisces happening here in a year's time. So, you know, and the next annular eclipse will be in your sign of Libra. So again, whatever you're learning right now, if you can do it to the best of your ability, imagine how much more you're going to fly up in the world a year from now. Imagine how much more you're going to know yourself, how much more confidence you're going to have in yourself. This is absolutely about confidence in your body, in your image, and in your kind of persona as it comes out. So no need to hide around everyone else. This is about you coming out and to really feel that intensely. So I hope that's helpful to you, Libra. So much love to you. I'll catch up with you another time real soon. Okay, Scorpio. So I'm looking at the eclipses, you know, kind of in this sort of pattern that where we started the year on the 25th of March, we've kind of gone around the blocks a little bit, and we're coming right back to this spot on the 2nd of October with the annular solar eclipse. You know, just a few degrees on, 5 degrees on from the original starting place. So I'm going to take you on this tour quickly to explain what I think this is meaning and how you're coming back to the same spot, but from a more elevated and serene perspective. So here goes. The 25th then, the 25th of March was where this journey started. And the eclipse, which was a full moon, was in your 12th house. Now that often brings up a sense of like intense emotion, a hell of a lot of emotion, and a lot of facing yourself, almost like seeing your fears, everything like coming into being. It was a really deeply personal time. And I don't know what was going on for you at that moment in time, but it was almost like it was time to rest. It wasn't time to start working and being really busy. It was actually calling you back into yourself, because there's something important for you to learn. If you could only stay still enough and calm enough. And of course, this whole journey started with a lunar eclipse, which is a full moon, eclipsed full moon, high energy in this place of yourself. I mean, this would have given you a sense of potential for sure, because you almost had the feeling you could tap into yourself and like tap into the richness of yourself. And yet there were things that you needed to do. The following eclipse on the 8th of April was really highlighting this bit here in your 6th house and showing a pain point because it's in a conjunction to Chiron. And so it's absolutely reminding you, or maybe not reminding you, I think you interpreted these energies around the time of the total solar eclipse as being a call to action. You know, you're thinking, okay, well, I know there's some greatness in here, in me, but actually to achieve that, I've got to get really, really busy and to work my butt off and to not stop until I've achieved what I needed to do. And so I think that has been your strategy. Your strategy has been absolutely to work hard at it. Now, the thing is, you were working hard at the nuts and bolts. So you're working at your health, working at your money, working at your house, doing your work in a very sort of functional way. However, it wasn't necessarily enriching your life. And I think that's what your learning has been. 6 months later, we're now at the time of the partial lunar eclipse, and it's here in this place of creativity. And this is what this particular eclipse is about. It's screaming at you. It is time to get absolutely creative. It is time for you to follow your passions. It's time for you to follow what lifts you up. Time to absolutely think, how can I feel more joy? If I'm not feeling joy, is it something I really want to do? And so the learning here with this partial lunar eclipse is to follow the joy and to think, how can I enjoy more joy? How can I enjoy more passion? How can I let the sort of entirety of my being come forwards through my creativity? The great news is that at the time of the annular solar eclipse, and I have to say, it's going to be in the 12th house, you know, anything opening up in the 12th house can sometimes, you know, create a feeling of introversion. You know, the 12th house is where Scorpios, like this area here for you, it's where you want to go to sleep. It's where you want to rest. It's where you want to kind of go into yourself. And it's perfect timing, actually. It's, you know, what I see going on with this eclipse is it's time for you to get creative. And as you get creative, it naturally takes you into a place of resting, repose, recovery. It is what you need to fuel you on your journey in yourself. This is where the full recovery is coming in. So I actually see that this is really beneficial. The annular solar eclipse on the 2nd of October has got phenomenal astrology, really beautiful, positive astrology that's going to help you move on. And so I think the more creative you can be at the time of this partial lunar eclipse, the more you can enjoy your joy and share your passion, the more you are coming into yourself in a completely new way, a new understanding for yourself. And I think this is a really good reset for you. So there you go, Scorpio. I hope that's helpful to you in managing these eclipses. And yeah, lots of love to you. Sagittarius. So this eclipse, I'm looking at the eclipse cycle as an ongoing thing. So what started on the 25th of March, if we say this was your starting point, we've done one eclipse, we're about to do another eclipse, and then we're going to, we are going the wrong way now. We are going to end up back here at the last eclipse on the 2nd of October on the annular solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So let me just take this back. On the 25th of March, there was a need to release yourself from an existing situation. And so this particular eclipse here almost felt like you were needing to release yourself from the people around you. Like maybe there were people around you that were too dominant, too frantic, too emotional, just too much. You know, it most likely felt like the people that you were that were in your networks, that you were talking to, that you'd come to know, just had got so intense, agitated and excitable that it was hard for you to really stay calm and really feel good in yourself. Almost like, you know, I'm doing so much for other people and yet I'm not really getting the joy of it. And, you know, as all problems arise in us, we're always looking for the next step. And that would have come at the time of the total solar eclipse on the 8th of April, which was down here, at this part of your chart in a conjunction with Chiron, helping you to set a new intention and a new way. But it's a new way, like, how can I get out of the pain of other people? And so what I really see was going on was there was a decision to just go into your own little creative bubble and to think, you know what, working with other people sucks. Working with other people is just a bit too much right now. Actually, I need to come into myself and work on my own projects, take complete control of my projects, and sort of explore my own, the things that are going to light me up, and really, really stick to it on your own. Now, I have to say, these pairings of eclipses aren't actually that dreadful. You know, they're actually kind of not such bad problems to have, because this total solar eclipse would have set you on a whole new path of creatorship. And I really imagine that you just got into such a creative flow that there would have just been so much coming up. It could have been quite difficult to control the amount of stuff that was coming out of you, especially after you took very strong action to not be creating with other people so much, but to really create in and of, in your own space and in your own image. Now, this particular partial lunar eclipse coming up on the 18th is pulling you into a new direction, and reminding you that if you come into this direction, it's going to help to resolve the issue. Sorry about my dogs. And so what's required of you now, and what this particular partial lunar eclipse is doing for you, is it's reminding you that actually, yes, your creativity is great, and yet it's stopping you from being still and quiet at home. It's stopping you from really going deeper into who you are. It's another distraction, so you had friendly distractions, you had creative distractions, but you weren't really touching yourself. I said that wrong. You weren't really reaching that sort of eternal I, that eternal meaning, so you've gone from one form of meaning connection to another. And now this is the one that's calling to you, and it's asking you to come home. It's pulling you home and saying, actually, the goodness is at home. The goodness is in, and your home might be your body, but it's asking you to come inside, come into a quiet place, come into a place of stillness, not to be so busy on the outside, but to come and honor yourself more and take more time, take a break between one activity you're doing and another. Take good time. It's about looking after yourself and really going into a place of maintenance. The good news is, as the next eclipse comes up, this sort of like rapid creativity that you've experienced, plus this rapid refreshment that you've been going through, is going to reset you on your journey in quite a good way. So this next eclipse, the annular solar eclipse, is going to be connecting you into a much deeper version of networks, where your networks are likely to grow exponentially, where you're likely to be connected with far more people coming into your life, and they're going to be the right kinds of people, the people that respect you and love your energy, absolutely love your energy. And so this, to me, feels like a really good reset for you and a really good restart. But the key is to come into yourself at this time of the partial lunar eclipse. Absolutely. This is a time of nourishment and putting yourself back together by taking the time to do so. Remember, this particular eclipse is showing up next year in a year's time, and the following annular solar eclipse will also be in this part of your chart. So the journey you're going on right now that can lead you to a much bigger audience or client base or friend base or whatever kind of level of sociality you're experiencing and hoping for, this is one that's going to take you even further next year. So I hope that's helpful to you, Sagittarius. So much love to you. Right, Capricorn, let's get down to business. So I'm looking at the sort of final meaning for you in terms of these eclipses. Like they started on the 23rd of March. We had one on the 8th of April. Now we're on the 18th of September. And then the final one of this year will be on the 2nd of November. And what I notice is the position of the first one and the last one are pretty much in the same place. A bit like we start here, we go this way, then we go that way, and then we end up back where we started, but further on in the journey. So let's get cracking. So the first one, where it all started, and what we were really wanting to release from, to me, it felt like there was a lot of a build up around your career and a feeling that it was all getting too much. There was too much responsibility on your shoulders. Maybe there was too much power that you had and it was uncomfortable. To me, it just felt like a heavy weight, because what you'd created was actually starting to weigh you down. It wasn't feeling that pleasant. And then a couple of weeks later, because once we identify a problem, soon after we start to identify possible fixes, and we go into that, we put on a new mask and we create a new strategy, and it moves from there. So your new strategy that was coming in was to focus directly on the home. You know, you'd realize that, you know, over the last, I don't know however long it is, you've got so focused in your career that you hadn't really experienced things at home. And actually it felt quite painful at home. It was feeling like you were a bit isolated at home and a bit separate from your family. And I think your solution to that has been to come back into the home and to be important at the home. And actually that's probably what's happened, is now you've just transferred that power and responsibility from being outside of your home to being inside of the home. So you haven't actually shifted the amount you're doing. You haven't actually taken any time off necessarily. In fact, it's probably got a bit busier. A bonus is you've been connected to people, but you've still become this power force, and you've still been powerful, and you've still had lots of responsibility. So yes, you shifted the situation, but it hasn't necessarily healed. Now, the next eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse that's upon us, is asking you to go back into your neighborhood and to get a sense of belonging. You know, it's time to like leave the power sort of at home a little bit and to step away from it. It's about sharing. It's not about taking it all on your own shoulders. It's about seeing what can go on at a local level and being important to everyone, not just your business, not just your family, but being an important person within a team. So I really think what's coming up with this partial lunar eclipse for you is that you're learning about teamwork and brotherhood and sisterhood. You're being encouraged to respond to a community problem or a community issue, and to be part of the solution, but not to carry the solution. And that to me feels like the biggest challenge. However, the great news about this is the next eclipse coming up on the 2nd of October is going to be back up here. And to me, what this is showing is this next one up here isn't going to be a full moon one. It's going to be a new moon eclipse. So you are getting a new start with your career. Your career is about to rev up. It's like you turn the key, your engine fires up, you put your foot on the pedal, and all of a sudden you're going, you're off, you're setting off in a new direction with a refreshment, a different kind of view about your career. But to me, it's an achieved wisdom and a resolution. Now, what was the real key, I think, was just taking you out of that frame of reference that you have to do everything, that you have to carry the weight. And, you proved that you could step back into the family, but were still carrying the responsibility. Now you're realizing that it's okay to be part of a team. And I think you're coming back into your job with a greater sense of more freedom, more connections, more people that you might want to collaborate with, that you might want help from, that might help to share your reputation within the community. To me, it just feels like your new direction from the 2nd of October, and the astrology for it is phenomenal. It's just taking you off in a much better direction. So there you go. That's how I see how you get from one point right the way back to the other, but at an elevated place. So I think that's how it's going to work for you, Capricorn. I hope that's helpful, and I'll speak to you another time. Take care. Hey there, Aquarius. So in this shorter part of the forecast, but very focused on you, I'm taking you on the journey around the eclipse pattern. So when I kind of plotted them out on the chart, I realized that where we started the eclipses this year is actually where we end the eclipses. So on the 25th of March, we had a full moon, a penumbral lunar eclipse, a full moon, so it's high energy, taking place in this part of your chart, which is about adventure, almost as if you're like crying out for adventure, really needing some open space, really needing to know more and be more, and to feel more connected to life, and to just feel like there's a much bigger curiosity and perspective for you. And yet maybe there wasn't enough, or maybe there was too much. But to me, the 25th of March really showed a need for freedom, like there'd been enough energy focused on the here and now, and you were really wanting something more, and it kind of probably blew up a little bit. Now, the 8th of April, around that time, we had the total solar eclipse. And that shows the natural reset, the natural way to, I don't know, put right what doesn't seem right in the initial, perspective or in the initial moment. And what that was really showing is you were actually going back to set a new intention and find a new way by exploring your local community and exploring things with, maybe your peers, your siblings, your neighbors, kind of getting back into the sort of like neighborly kind of energy, and trying to be a bit more local, maybe exploring on a local basis. And maybe your commitment to do that has actually helped you, because you've had a bit more adventure and you've been a lot more active. To me, I think what you've probably done is distracted yourself whilst you might not have gone traipsing around the world or learning different languages and studying in an ashram or whatever it is that you were hoping to do in a retreat. What you did instead was just get really active and social with your friends and stuff. And that would have worked for a while. We put on a new strategy, a new mask, and yet at some level there's a lack of meaning. There's a deeper need to examine, how you can enjoy more adventure and enjoy more expansion. It feels like you've done what you needed to do in your local community, and now what? Now you're back in the same place again. And so this is where the partial lunar eclipse comes in. And it's in the second house. So the full moon in the second house and an eclipsed full moon in the second house is absolutely about your money, your fears about money, but also about how you're receiving, how many resources you have, and your self-esteem is absolutely how you value yourself. And so I think, maybe, part of the problem here about like needing the adventure, like how can money and values really fit into this thirst for adventure? Maybe why you like stuck close to home was because you wanted to make it a bit more affordable. Like, how can I make the need for adventure work even though I maybe don't have the budget to do that, or I don't have the self-esteem to do that, or to get off my backside and put myself in a risky position? And so this particular partial lunar eclipse, I think, is bringing up possibilities and reminding you that actually, if you look at it from a position of money, which might be the harder position to look at it from, you might actually find the solutions. But because you didn't consider that, you just went to your next best thing, which was to experience adventure and knowledge locally. But now what you're looking at, you're facing it from a bigger perspective and looking at what resources you might need to have your big adventure, where they might come from, and also noticing where you've got resistance to having the kind of adventure that you're seeking. Maybe you are a bit afraid of going somewhere far afield. Maybe you're worried about the culture or the country, or how you fit that in around a normal terrestrial life, your normal sort of like, I don't know what your life is like, but, most of us are quite normal, aren't we? In our own little way. So like, how does it all fit in? Can you just drop everything to do something really quite life-changing? Are you ready to do that? Can you afford to do it? Not can you afford to do it? How can you afford to do it? How can you make it happen? Because there's lots of ways. And I think this is what the partial lunar eclipse might be bringing up for you, is that the decisions that you made initially maybe we just weren't right, and now you've got more information. There's more opportunities that have evolved in the world. Like, there's so many more ways to travel, so many more ways to study, so many more ways to learn. There are communities, like online learning communities, springing up all over the place. Many of them are free even, so money isn't always an option. But what I'm saying is everything has changed in this last 6 months, and new possibilities are now coming into your unconscious mind, which is absolutely activated at the time of the partial lunar eclipse. So if I was in your shoes, and I've only actually recommended one other person do this, but so it's not one size fits all, absolutely not. But this would be a great time to brainstorm, what you'd like out of an adventurous life and to expand your life. Like really, really brainstorm it and don't write anything off. Hold it all as a possibility. You know, it doesn't matter how big and bold it is, you know, just absolutely kind of dream about it and brainstorm it. And then see what comes up around the time of the partial lunar eclipse. Like what synchronicities are showing up. Who says, oh, I heard about this. Have you thought of, you know, this, that, or the other? There are so many different ways that things can happen. And I think the best thing you could do actually is to kind of create it. And almost write about it as if you're receiving it. Now, the good thing about this is where it's leading to, because on the 2nd of October, we're coming back to our starting position with the annular solar eclipse. And it's not a full moon. It is a new moon eclipse. The solar eclipses are always about a new start. And it's reflecting the achieved wisdom and resolution, you know, in terms of this. Now, this isn't just a one-off. You know, next year, we're also going to have this scenario where we have a lunar eclipse in Pisces, followed by a solar eclipse in Libra. You know, the two of them are going to go together again. So, you know, you might even plan that the escape you're hoping for is actually one that you start next year, but you start planning for it now. So you might be creating all of the means to be able to do it so that you can go off next year. But to me, I think this is an exciting time. I think you might be about to make a life-changing decision. You know, you can take it as big as you like. It might be that you just choose to do a course that you've wanted to do for a really, really long time, but just never thought you had the time, because that's also a resource, money, the family situation to do it. But now you're finding new ways to be able to do it. Or you might be just doing something completely new and kind of going off on an adventure. But I think this is good. The annular solar eclipse on the 10th, the 2nd of October, it's got very, very positive astrology. To me, it's saying like the world's your oyster. So there you go. I hope that's helpful to you, Aquarius, as I've taken you through this topsy-turvy little loop of eclipses. But anyway, lots of love and catch you another time. Bye for now. Okay, Pisces. So I'm taking you on a little journey around the loop, this lovely loop that's representing the loop of the eclipses. So it starts on the 25th of March. And it starts here. That's where the first eclipse took place. Then on the, then we have two more eclipses taking us off in different directions. And then the last eclipse on the 2nd of October is also here. So, you know, what we've started earlier this year, we're coming into land there in the next 2.5 weeks. So what is this all about? So let's kind of pace this out. So everything is kind of like a problem, a solution, a new, deeper solution, followed by, wow, a new start. And so that's how I see this playing out. So on the 25th of March, we had the lunar eclipse, a full moon in the 8th house, really showing the need to release from an existing situation, probably to do with some kind of blame, shame, guilt, or anger, like an old pattern. It might also have something to do with the passage of time, and also the idea of rites of passage, you know, that you are in one place and then you need to move on. You know, we are always moving on in life, aren't we? So to me, it felt like things would have got really, really big, and there was a feeling of an ending of a situation, maybe in your life, and the start of a new one, and it would involve a purge of sorts to do with, you know, how you manage expectations. Are you people pleasing to make them work? Are you feeling guilty about stuff? Where are you hiding resentments and all that kind of stuff? It's real deep work, actually, I have to say, really deep work for you. Now, the following eclipse was on the 8th of April, and it's a total solar eclipse, and it was really showing up in your second house. It's like one of those eclipses that's about a new start and setting a new intention and setting a new way. I actually think from the problems that you might have had around this time and the feelings of lack of control, probably, because it feels like everything is in other people's hands, or things are in time's hand or fate's hand, you know, like you can't stop the passage of time necessarily. So, you know, I think, you know, the 8th of April was very much about setting off in a new direction. And for you, I think it was about finding more income, working harder, finding new ways of working. How can I receive more? How can I use my resources in a better way? And also building your self-esteem up, making some real big decisions about assertiveness and how you might handle people that try to put guilt on your shoulders. And so I think that is probably your strategy that has kept you going for the last 6 months or so. But it's starting to fail, you know, that the effectiveness of it is obviously not a true solution, but a sort of patch job. And actually what's coming up now is another crack at this from a different perspective. And we've got the partial lunar eclipse. And this is showing up in your first house. It's a very, very like personal place for you. You know, this is in your own sign, really showing that, you know, it's not about the money and it's not about your self-esteem. There's something about you, like your persona, your image, your body, and what people know of you. You know, like if I asked you, like, find 3 words that all of your friends would use to describe you, or if they were to describe you know, your responses to a particular situation, what would they think? You know, like, you've probably got this sort of amorphous description of who you are based on everyone else's expectations. And I think this partial lunar eclipse is about you defining for yourself who you are, and not living in the listening of everybody else, but to absolutely think, no, I'm going to create my own listening. You know, in fact, I've been listening to everyone else and I've been taking them seriously. I've been believing them, but now it's in your hands. And I think this is what the lunar eclipse is showing you. It's showing you, actually, it's not about the money or the self-esteem, because what comes before that is knowing you, which I guess is like the search for meaning and taking yourself back to your core, which is what I was talking about in the first part of the update. Now, where this is leading on the 2nd of October is to a breakthrough, and it's coming from achieved wisdom, and it's like a resolution. You know, the annular solar eclipse on the 10th is a new moon. It's setting you on a new trajectory. So where you started at the beginning of the year feeling like, I'm not comfortable with these life changes, I'm not comfortable with how I think people are judging me, I've got like residual guilt, shame, blame, anger, and resentment within me that are actually ruling me and running me. They're running the show. It's not me running the show. It's all of these silly emotions and stuff. When you come back here on the 2nd of October, you've got the physical fitness, like the stamina, the sense of vitality. You probably are earning a bit more because you've been working on that too. So you're in an altogether much better place. And then I think as this is coming into being, I think you can actually feel at peace about the person you're becoming, and peace about the resentments you're letting go of. And I think you can be at peace because you're not going to play into the guilt game anymore. You're not going to play into sort of self-sabotage and subservience, you know, like unending subservience. You don't need to do that anymore. And I think you realize that now. And I think that's bloody brilliant. So well done you. So I think you are coming back to this place, and it's a reflection place. And the thing is, you're going to be at the same place, funnily enough, this time next year as well, because there's going to be another partial lunar eclipse here. And there is also going to be another annular solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. So what you're working on now, you'll fly through next year. So there you go, Pisces. I hope that was helpful. So much love to you as ever, and catch you another time. So there you go. There you have it. They're my very quick updates on how you're going through that, like, circle of life, the circle of the eclipses, you know, from where you start off with the eclipse and go back round, the never ending story that I spoke about. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. Get in touch if you need help. But anyway, I'll catch you another time. Thanks so much for watching. Love you. Mwah! Have fun.